This is Emma Murphy, and today I had the opportunity to talk with the wonderfully talented Broadway star Erika Henningsen. Erika Henningsen is widely known for originating the role of Cady in Mean Girls Broadway and currently plays the title role of Charlie Morningstar in the hit adult animated musical comedy series Hazbin Hotel. So I've been a huge fan since I discovered Mean Girls on Broadway during COVID. So like back in 2020, and I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I watched like the YouTube
You can say it.
yeah, I watched like the YouTube clips maybe 100 times of the show. I never got to see it in person, but that's a
Aw.
plus. So could you tell me a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into musical theater?
Yeah, I grew up in Northern California, and there's like a good theater scene there. There were local community theaters, there were, my school choir, but I really just kind of started doing it as a hobby. Anytime it was available to take like a summer theater workshop or a summer acting class or a voice lesson, that was sort of what I was drawn to. I like did a ton of other things growing up. I played sports. I was super involved with Model UN and mock trial, but theater was kind of always the thing that took up not just the majority of my time, but the majority of my interest. And it kind of all spiraled from there. I feel like the main thing about people who are professionals in the arts, a lot of the times, they're just people who kept doing it. And it's not really a linear path at all. It's a totally it takes such twists and turns. And to get where I am now, there have been a lot of ups and a lot of positives and a lot of things that led from one to the next. And there's also been moments in the valley, so to speak, of not really knowing where I fit into the industry or what I was going to do next. And it kind of just comes back to the fact that being an actor is such a varied existence. I do musical theater. I do a lot of other stuff. I get to do concerts like this one coming up in Newport News. And it all stems from truly that just childhood background of trying everything and trying everything in the theater world and trying everything just in the world at large. I think the most helpful attribute for being a working actor is curiosity. And that's sort of what I started out with in spades. Maybe
Cool.
not so much talent, but curiosity.
Yeah. So how did you get started with Broadway?
Sure. So I would say, I mean, I went to college for musical theater, and that was sort of the connective tissue between being somebody who does theater for a hobby and somebody who does it for a profession. I went to school, I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater. I graduated and I started auditioning in the city because I had been set up with an agent from my school, basically. So a lot of people always say, is it important to go to school for musical theater? And I said, I think you can get good training everywhere.
Hmm.
And I shouldn't say everywhere. I think you can get good training in a lot of places. But for me, the main thing was I really wanted somebody to help shepherd me into the professional world. And in the case of New York theater, that tends to be an agent. You don't have to have one, but that was what was most helpful for me. And so when I moved to New York, I had this Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from a great school, a great training program. I had a couple friends in the city, so that was a really helpful security blanket. And I just started auditioning. And for the first year or so of auditioning, it wasn't really about getting the part. It was just doing a good enough job that they would call me back the next time. So, and not always for the role that I auditioned for, but for the next show that they were casting or something down the line. So that was sort of how it started. I was auditioning a ton. I got a couple regional gigs out of town in Washington, D.C. and Pittsburgh, and one other place, I forget where. And then I had my first audition for Broadway that I had a callback for, which was Les Mis. And
Hmm.
I went in for Cosette first in Les Mis and then didn't hear back from that. And then a month later, they called me for Fantine. And then that's the role that I ended up getting. And that's what I made my Broadway debut doing.
So that was actually my next question. I saw that you were the youngest person ever to play that role. What was that experience like?
I mean, ignorance is bliss. I have to say, like being young playing that role, I think was such a treat because I just didn't quite understand how big of a deal it was. I think when you're young, you just think, oh, things will always be like this. Like,
Yeah.
it's so normal for me to be playing Fantine on Broadway at 23 years old. And like that sort of blind confidence is, it wasn't audacity and it wasn't ego. It was just sort of, when you're young, you have such faith in things going the way you dreamed of. And that was totally an example of above and beyond. I was getting to do my dream show on Broadway. It was also the last show I did in college and the same role. So when I was graduating from college, I was playing Fantine, and then 2 years later I was doing it on Broadway. I mean, it's just the symmetry of those opportunities is so wild to me. And I really I really wish I could go back to that 23-year-old and say, like, soak this in. But at the same time, the reason I didn't know to soak it in is also the reason I was able to do it and not be afraid. So I think there's such beauty in getting older and knowing a bit more about the world. And there's also such freedom in being young and not knowing. And I think that freedom is what allowed me to play that part and to
Yeah.
do it at an age that no female actress had really done before.
Yeah, that is so cool. When I read that, I was like, wow, like,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
wild.
It's so interesting to see like how young people get started in it. Like I always imagine like celebrities as like, not my age, but now I'm at the age where it's like, yeah, they are. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, it's definitely, I go through that too. I definitely go through that where I'll Google somebody that I loved in a movie when I was like 18 and I go, oh, they were 2 years older than me. Like I thought that was an adult.
Yeah.
Very common.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Renee Rapp. It's like she's not that much older than me. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
Yeah. So, speaking of Broadway, you originated the role of Cady Heron. Could you tell me a bit about the audition process and how that was like?
Sure. Another sort of classic. I didn't get it the first time. I went in for the lab of the show, which is where they do it sort of in a dance studio for producers. Um, and it was down to like me and one other girl, and the other girl got it. And that was like a huge bummer because I had already gotten, let's see what had happened. I had gotten a no from Anastasia and then a no from Frozen. And so Mean Girls was kind of the role that I thought, okay, third time's the charm. Not that I would have been great as Anna or Anastasia. I just really wanted them. So then I didn't get Mean Girls for the lab, and the lab, they were saying this was going to be the Broadway cast. So I went home and I cried on my couch to my friend because I said, I really thought this one was mine. I really, and again, you kind of have to have that sort of blind faith in yourself, like to have the audacity to say, yeah, I could do this on Broadway. And also the humility to know that the girl next to you could just as easily do the same thing. And when I didn't get it, I had like a month where I knew they were rehearsing, and I was really bummed because I had friends in the show and I just tried to not ask them about it. And so I went on my way and I did another show out of town. And a couple months later, I got a phone call from an agent saying they are putting the puzzle together in a different way, which is basically code for, it's not code, I shouldn't say that. It's they're recasting, and they were recasting because a couple pieces were moving. We lost an incredible actress, Krista, who was in the lab. She went to go do a television show. So then Gretchen was different. Something else changed. Miss Norbury changed because somebody wasn't available. I think potentially somebody had gotten pregnant. So then they had Carrie Butler. So all these things were moving around. And one of the things that was moving around was casting Cady with a new actress. And I was told that they wanted me to come back in. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I can't possibly lose this part again. But I also can't not go in for this. So I went in, and again, I do think something happens when you are unafraid. With Fantine, I was unafraid because I was so young. And with Cady, I was unafraid because I had already lost it once. So there was no part of me that thought like, well, I'll be hurt. I'd already gotten through the mourning process. So I went in for the Broadway auditions, and that was the one that I ended up getting. And it was a long process. It was a long
Mhm.
process of getting matched with people and trying to figure out what the puzzle piece was supposed to be. And luckily I was the one.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I've been following you since 2020, and like I feel like you are Cady. Like I don't it's yeah, I loved your performance. It was so good. And like honestly, I wasn't even really a fan of Cady as the character, and then I saw the musical and I was like, wow, like it's just so different.
It's so different. Well, I appreciate that because I do think a big thing in making that show was, well, I can't possibly do what Lindsay Lohan did, so I just have to do this
Yeah,
on.
it's so different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both of them work for their respective um formats, I guess. Yeah.
Oh.
I guess you could call this a game. I don't really know, but like I have something quick to do. It's basically just rapid fire questions that I really want to know. And then you can just say whatever pops into your head first.
Oh, I love it.
And
Okay.
then this is about Mean Girls. What was your favorite song to sing?
Oh my gosh. It's a niche cut, but it's Do This Thing. I just liked doing stuff with the I
Really?
know it's so random. I know the song is like not a favorite at all on the
Oh, I
sound.
love it. Yeah.
Well, it was just also like at that point in the show, I knew I was almost done. So I
Yeah.
could kind of like let loose. Everything else I had to really like place it and be careful because I was on stage for 3 hours. So that was kind of the number where I thought, okay, if I have gas in the tank, I can let it go here.
Yeah. What was your favorite song in general?
I did sing it, but Apex Predator.
Mine too. That one is my ultimate favorite. Yeah. Who is your favorite castmate to act with? And you can't say Kyle because that's cheating.
Gray Henson.
Yeah. What was your favorite line to say?
Because I thought it was so smart how she did this. Tina, there's a scene in the bedroom, Regina's bedroom, where they're like, oh, my pores are huge, or like my nail beds suck. And in the movie, Lindsay Lohan says, I have really bad breath in the morning. And, you know, it's such an iconic moment in the movie. And I was like, oh, that's not going to be funny if I say it because people are going to know it's coming. And Tina's just an example of like sometimes the simplest joke is the best joke. And so the joke that I loved and it got a big laugh every night was they would say, my nail beds suck, my pores are huge. And then they'd look at Cady and Cady would just go, yeah, me too. I'm ugly too. And it
I
was
forgot about that.
so good. It's so good because it's, you know, it's simple. It's exactly what her brain would be thinking. And she improved the joke from the movie by making it simpler. Like
Mhm.
it's such a smart twist.
Okay, and then the last question is what was your least favorite like song or scene to do?
I mean, I think this scene where Taylor or Renee or whoever's playing Regina got hit by the bus was really scary just because it like so much was happening on stage and
Mhm.
it's dark. People are singing and jumping. We're like screaming. It wasn't my least favorite. It was just kind of like the most stressful.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's meant to be stressful. Like
Mhm.
everything is building to this moment. So of course I would get stressed naturally because that's what's happening to the character.
Yeah.
Um, but then I would also have this thing in my head that was like, and also a bus is about to fly onto the stage.
Yeah. So I asked my brother if he wanted to ask you a question because I had to. So shout out Owen, this is for you. He wanted to know, did you watch the new movie and what did you think about it?
Yeah, I watched the new movie. I got to see it actually with Kyle and Christina Alabato, who played Gretchen, and we loved it. We were like so happy to see the way it sort of continued on. It's obviously a very different medium to take
Mhm.
anything into film from stage. So the thing that I enjoyed about it the most was that like I feel like it left some of my favorite parts of the stage musical intact. And the things that it couldn't do because it's film, it didn't try to. Like
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to accomplish Gretchen's number on film
Yeah.
doesn't really work. And I think it was good that they made it sort of this like quiet moment, kind of more like a monologue, as opposed to, you know, what it is in the show, which is like really a big musical number. It's not a big musical number, but it is a big musical moment for the character. And that doesn't really make sense for Gretchen in the movie because
Yeah.
it's so hyper realistic in many ways.
This is the last Mean Girls question. Do you still keep in touch with your former castmates?
Yes. Yeah.
Who do you talk to the most besides Kyle?
I mean, Gray is like one of our best friends. Christina's one
Mhm.
of my best friends. We're all in touch, but like those are my main people.
So you play the title role of Charlie Morningstar in Hazbin Hotel on Amazon Prime. I binged the entire show a few weekends ago, and it was very raunchy. I loved it. It was so good, but I really want to know, how did they pitch it to you?
Well, the show kind of pitched itself because it kind of knew that it was going to be very successful. So there was no, like, nobody had to sell me on doing this. You know, I think people a lot of times forget that, you know, no matter how successful you are, every actor wants a good job.
Yeah,
And
true.
so the thing that they pitched it to was like, there's like some Disney princess vibes in it. I honestly feel like there's a lot more like Cady in it than Disney princess. She sounds like kind of Disney in some of her songs, but the thing that is most fun about this character is that like ideally, hopefully we'll have lots of seasons of it. So she's going to change a lot. And I've never
Yeah.
been with a character who gets to change. Um, I've been in shows where I find new things in the character, but for the most part, like the story stays the same because it's Broadway.
Yeah.
So this is going to be really fun, I think.
Is this one of your first like non-Broadway projects?
Yeah, I've done like some like smaller TV and film things. But this is the one that I'll be attached to. This I will be attached to this longer than anything else I've been attached to, I think. It just takes a long time for these things to
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah.
Still like engaging with the show as they're making it. So I think it'll be a large chunk of my life playing, I mean, ideally, Charlie Morningstar.
Yeah. Talking about like the recording and stuff, how long does it take to record each episode, like for the voice actors? Because I know I got really disappointed because I looked up when the next season would be and it's not for a while, obviously, because animation takes a long time. But I'm curious about like the recording.
I mean, it depends. Like sometimes, for the most part, you do an episode in a day, and by a day I mean like 3 hours. But I'm supposed to record a couple episodes end of April, and we're gonna try and record like 3 in 6 hours. So it depends.
Wow.
Like sometimes some episodes I don't sing in, some episodes I sing a lot in, some episodes I don't even like show up because we're dealing with other characters. So it just kind of depends. But I would say that like if you're in an episode and singing a song, they need like 3 hours with you.
Hmm.
It's fast. It's
Yeah.
very fast.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. That's like
Mhm.
3 hours sounds long, but it flies by.
Hmm.
Flies.
So, what do you think the biggest difference for you is for like live acting and then voice acting?
I mean, the main thing with voice acting is that you, speaking of, I'm making tea right now because voice acting, all you have is your voice. So you have to get really creative with it, which is why it's easier to lose it.
Mhm.
So that's been one thing, is learning how to create like an interesting vocal performance without like, you know, I'm still a singer. I still audition for theater and Broadway and film and trying to not blow my voice out. So that's been interesting. But the other thing is you have to like come up with 3 different ways always to say something. So you kind of like you're trying to give them as many options as possible in the moment. Whereas in theater, when you're rehearsing, you go from like on Tuesday, you try it once, and then on Wednesday, you can try it again. That's not really the case in voiceover. It's like whatever you try, that's going to be in the final cut. So, like, it's wild. Like, the thing that people are rewatching and rewatching on Amazon, the opening song, I sang it 3 times. Like, that wasn't like a full like 10-hour recording session. That was like we recorded it for maybe an hour, four, maybe three, four times all the way through. And then like little punches, like here, like little sections.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just fast. You just have to trust your instincts and you have to trust that like your idea of what the scene should be is not even correct, but at least interesting. And then you just have to give them a lot of options because when they go to animate it, if you said your line the same way four times, like that's all they have to work with. They can't get you, they could get you back in the booth, but that's a lot of time and energy for everybody.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. That is so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool world. I love it.
Hmm. So speaking of Christina, I saw that she plays Cherry Bomb. And I didn't know that at first. So what's it like working with a familiar face?
Oh my God, it's the best. I mean, she's the greatest. Like, we have the best time. It's like so fun. You don't record with your people, you record by yourself. But when we get to go like promote the show, we get to go together and hopefully one day there'll be like a reason for us to be in the recording studio together. But it's like a super cool thing that we've overlapped twice now. It's kind of wild. That doesn't really happen that often.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that stuck out to me, Charlie is a queer character in a relationship with Vaggie.
Yeah.
And for me, that was super exciting to see. What was that like? Did you know about that going into it, or did you find out later?
I mean, I knew that, but I think what's interesting is like the nuances of their relationship. I didn't really know. Like, I don't get the script until a couple of days before I record it. So everything about Vaggie, no spoilers that I will drop here. Like, I'm finding that out 2 days before I go to record. So it's kind of wild. Like, I just think I feel like a fan of the show because the way that y'all respond when you find out something about a character is the way that I would respond about it when I find out about it. I just find out about it a bit earlier.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm excited to see where that goes. I mean, I could tell right away. I just like I knew it, but it was nice to see the what's the word? That they actually were a couple. So that was
Yeah, yeah. And like a truly like, yeah, in love teammate couple.
yeah, yeah, that was really nice to see. And then last question about Hazbin Hotel. If you could describe the show in 3 words, what would they be?
Um, it is a hysterical musical raunchy adventure.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly what it was. You're performing at the Ferguson Center on April 20th,
Yeah.
with the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. What's the vibe gonna be like?
I mean, it's gonna be a little be beautifully all over the place. I kind of sing everything, and I'm aware that, I have pockets of fans and then also pockets of musical theater in my blood that I try to bring out in a concert. So, there's going to be songs for the people who have been watching the symphony for years or decades, even songs that they'll know from sort of the classic Golden Age Rodgers and Hammerstein canon. And then there's stuff for people your age, musical theater kids in college who grew up on Mean Girls and Dear Evan Hansen. My hope is that at least in every act, somebody goes, "Oh, I love this song," and then has to explain to the person next to them what the song is.
Are you allowed to say what songs you'll be singing or a few of them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll sort of start with some like touchstones. Like I start with some of my favorite songs from Rodgers and Hammerstein, Sound of Music. Um, I'm closing with some of my dream roles, and hint, most of them are not roles that have been played by women.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And then I'll do, there's a little bit of Mean Girls in there. There's a little Billie Eilish in there. And then there's some big, gutsy Broadway power numbers that people will know if they have spent any time watching Glee or been on Broadway in the last 25 years or gone to a Broadway show in the last 25 years.
Oh, that is so I'm gonna go. I'm so excited.
Yay. Yeah. And tell all your friends.
Yeah, oh, I'm bringing my brother. He's excited too.
Yes, yes.
So I saw in the description that you're gonna have some surprise guests. Um,
Yes.
is someone named Kyle gonna be joining you?
Kyle will be joining. Yes.
Is there anyone else?
Christina Alabato will be joining.
For people who don't know much about the Broadway and the Ferguson Center, what can they expect at your show?
Yeah. I think the Ferg is a really intimate setting, but it has this like grand acoustic, and the symphony is obviously incredible. So ideally, it's going to feel kind of like a cozy night, and there just happens to be me on stage in a ball gown as well as a symphony. I am such a low key person. Honestly, the idea of doing a symphony show feels exciting to me, and also I'd like to I would do a show in my sweatpants for 20 people if I could. So I think it'll be kind of a mix of that sort of the opulence that I know that an orchestra lends to music, and then the comfort of I carry myself with just a lot of gratitude and humility to get to do this. I hope people will feel like they've met me by the end of the show. And I also hope that they'll be reminded that, orchestras and symphonies are such a beautiful space to hear music, but they don't have to be unapproachable. I think a really big thing about bringing in a young person to sing with them. Oh gosh, am I young? I'm young. Um, is
You
to
definitely are.
invite, yeah, I'm young. Is to invite people in. I feel like growing up, I was always afraid to go to like the opera or go to see. I grew up in San Francisco to see the symphony in San Francisco, but they're meant to be spaces where we share music, no matter your age or background. So I'm hoping that we can kind of bring the two worlds together on April 20th.
Make sure to join Broadway's Erika Henningsen for a night of classic and not so classic musical gems with the Virginia Symphony Orchestra on April 20th in the Diamond Scene Concert Hall. See you all there.